Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to a review of a watch that sits in one of my favourite little categories, the Flieger. I've only reviewed maybe half a dozen or so Fliegers so far. They don't tend to be nearly so popular and therefore they're not nearly as prevalent as say dive watches are at the $500 or less end of the market that is and always will be the focus of this channel. I'm sure you're aware of the potted history of the Flieger. Military spec watches from the Second World War made by a small group of 5 German companies for the Luftwaffe. Those 5 companies were Wempe, Lion, IWC, and the 2 that are still relatively affordable today, Laco and Stowa. Now I've looked at one each from Laco and Stowa and I like both watches. I thought they were nicely designed, nicely made, and they have that original connection. They have the history and the lineage dating back to the 1940s. Late last year I looked at something from the other end of the Flieger spectrum, a San Martin Flieger, a Type B, well under $400 for a Swiss Solita 200 movement powered watch, but zero history, zero heritage, zero geographical connection to the original watches. Today the watch on my wrist is by DEKLA, a German company, and I reckon this one pretty much splits the difference. It's a German company, made in Germany, the strap's made in Germany, the cases are hand finished there and so on, but it doesn't have the price premium that you get from the big 5 companies. To be clear, this one was sent to me for free by DEKLA. I don't have to send it back. I've been chatting to them for about a year about getting this review up and running. They sent me this watch maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and since then they have made one fundamental change to the design. I was only going to have 2 things in the moans and niggles section, and now I'm only going to have 1. To be honest, it's hard to stuff up a Flieger when you think about it. One of 2 prescriptive dial designs, the cases are all much of a muchness. Similarly, even the crowns and the straps are all pretty much the same thing. Let's flip the camera and have a look at this one. I like Fliegers, depending on what type of collector you are, but if you do like to have a kind of broad mixture of styles within your collection, I reckon there is a strong argument for reserving a slot in your top box for one of these, either kind of Type A or Type B classically designed watches. So what I thought I would do today is I'll run you through the kind of basic dimensions and specifications. First of all, like I said, they're all pretty similar. There's nothing that's like, wow, I've not seen that before on this one, because that's not the point. I reckon these are excellent value though, and I'm going to show you just how much you'd be paying for a similarly spec'd watch from Laco, from Stowa, and from San Martin, and you can see where this DEKLA fits in. So they offer watches with the 2 kind of classic dial designs, either the Type A 1 to 12 or the Type B, which has 5 to 55 with the 1 to 12 on an inner ring. They offer 3 different sizes as well, a 40 that I have here, there's a 42 and a 44. You can spec the old radium style loom like I did, you can have C3, you can have BGW9, you can have a mixture of both, you can have a bead blasted case that I have here, you can have brushed, you can have polished. Whole bunch of different options, all the same price, all €500. Now, if you're outside the Eurozone, you take the VAT back off that, plus delivery. If you're in the States, these are coming in at less than $500, which, like I keep saying, I think is a great price. So this one is 40mm in diameter, 47mm lug to lug, just under 11mm thick, 22mm lug width. On the supplied leather strap, this one weighs in at 90 grams. Double domed sapphire crystal, just a whiff of doming there, which I think is nice, with anti-reflective coating on the underside. Now I opted for the old radium style, the 14er on the hands and the indices, and that is reflected in the loom. Interesting decision they've made with the loom to only loom the even indices rather than the odds. It is quite a pleasant effect though, something a little bit different. Painted dial on these watches, all Fliegers tend to have painted dials. That does mean that you do get a fairly pleasant initial kick of loom, but perhaps it doesn't last quite as long as they would on a dive style watch or something like that with applied indices. Now the case finish on this one is satinized, bead blasted, very nice, very smooth, very evenly done throughout on the case and the bezel. Now you can spec this with a manual wind movement, again the same price. This has got an ETA 2824 auto. That means it's got a screw crown, 100 meters of water resistance. If you spec a manual wind, it just has a push-pull crown, but also has the same 100 meters of water resistance. Now you can also choose to spec on the engraving on the opposite side of the case of the old traditional Flieger markings, the FL23883, the numbers that were engraved on the sides of all the original Flieger watches in the 1930s and 1940s. That means that they had been tested and they were ready for active duty. 30 odd euros, I could take it or leave it personally, but it does add a little bit of extra authenticity. Zoomed in on the dial and it looks like every other Type B Flieger that has ever been made, which again is rather the point. Interesting to note though, those lovely blue hands are thermally blued. Again, not something I've encountered for less than $500 US. Most of the stuff at this price has painted blue hands. Like I said, everything just printed on here, but it's all nice and crisply done. Matte black dial, kind of black grey dial with that old radium 14er. I do like a bit of 14er myself. Case back is stainless steel, screwed down, and has the same bead blasted satinized finish as the case and the bezel on my watch. Bit of a spec sheet here. Now they offer either the Sellita 200 or the ETA 2824. You just get one or the other, but they do let you know on the case back. Similarly, if you go for manual wound, you get a 2801 or a 210 Sellita, and they will let you know. Flieger derivation, etc. all there on the back. And that's a rock solid result from the ETA in the back of this one. I said it before, I think these Flieger watches make great left field dailies, and that's the kind of performance statistics that you want out of a daily. Couple of seconds to the positive, healthy amplitude, 0 beat error. And I think they look great and wear well as potential dailies as well. I've got a 7-inch wrist for your reference. I have found though that sizing is critical with a Flieger. I have so far reviewed 39, 40, 41, 42 and 44. I think a mil makes a bigger difference with a Flieger than with any other style of watch, so do choose carefully. Fliegers do tend to be traditionally larger. 40 is quite small. I could certainly have coped with a 42, but I did want to see how the 40 wore, and it wears well. The strap on this one is perhaps a little larger than it might be. I will talk about that shortly. But obviously great at a glance legibility from these watches. They were pilot's watches. They were designed to be read confidently at a glance as well. The Type A is probably the easier of the two dials to read. It's a little bit cleaner, but I like the Type B because of that extra inner ring, because of the extra complexity. And outside, this one has no problems with some natural light either. Anti-reflective coating on the underside of the sapphire, and if I move it around a bit, you get that occasional delicious glint from those blue hands. On wrist, a relatively short lug to lug of only 47mm, and that kind of vintage style claw lug means it wears very well. But I did have a couple of complaints, didn't I? It's overstrapped. In fact, I think this one is well overstrapped. 40 diameter, 22mm lugs is pushing it at the best of times, I think, and this is a big, chunky, thick. It's very nice actually, but it is just too big for the watch, and that buckle, as nice as it is enormous. I am happy to say though that the change that I alluded to right at the beginning in the intro is that they have altered the dimensions of the 40mm diameter model, and they've cut it down to 20mm lug width, which I think resolves one of my two moans and niggles that I had with this one. The second is that those lugs are a little bit sharp. You know that I'm no fan of sharp edges on watches. I guess it's the vintage style. They tend to be a bit more angular and a bit sharper, but they could do with smoothing that one off. CNC machine cases, and they're all hand finished in Germany according to the website, but they could do with finishing these just a little bit more diligently in terms of the lug sharpness. But all in all, €500 for a built to order. You got to wait a couple of weeks for them to build one to your specifications. Made in Germany, Flieger watch with a Swiss made movement in the back of it, I think is a great price. For example, if you look at the San Martin that I reviewed last year, that one's coming in around 370 for a Sellita 200, but it is utterly sterile. The strap isn't nearly as good as this one. It's not made in Germany, and you don't have nearly the level of customization that's possible with the DEKLA. Next up is the Stowa Flieger Classic 40, a watch with pretty much parallel specifications to this one, the only difference being that it offers a display caseback. And of course, it's from one of the 5 companies that used to make them in the 1940s. But you're paying a hefty premium for that lineage, €925, and that's the ex-VAT price. That is well over double the price of the DEKLA. And finally from Laco, it's the Munster 42mm. Again, you can pick your size with the DEKLA. $1,200 for this one. Again, it has the history, it has the name, it has the lineage, but it also has the price tag. So it's a kind of similar question that I asked when I reviewed the San Martin last year. What is important to you? Is it the bottom line specs and price? Is it the history, the heritage, the lineage, the brand recognition, the brand name and brand identity? Please leave me a comment, let me know what you think of this one, where you think it fits into the spectrum of Fliegers. I must say I'm quite impressed with this one. I do think it offers a kind of genuine third way, the kind of middle path between the cheapo Chinese made stuff and the far more expensive stuff with the better history and backstory. Let me know what you think. Would you be tempted to go for one of these, or are you favouring the cheaper San Martin, or would you save your pennies and go for one of the Lacos or the Stowas? So there you have it. If you are in the market for a German-made Flieger, I would definitely have a closer look at these DEKLA watches. Choice of sizes, choice of finishes, I think great specs, great price overall as well. I appreciate they don't have the lineage that you get from a Stowa or a Laco, but you're not paying for that lineage either. Thanks for watching. I will see you in a future video.